Hello and welcome to the Perth Gaming Crew Show, episode 16. Today it is all things Tears of the Kingdom, as promised, as we've finally gotten around to after previous weeks of nudging and hinting. We are also going to be covering our favourite Zelda games of all time. Pat, welcome back. How you doing today, bro?
Good man. Another chilly day in Perth for us. Woke up today and my God, was it cold. Good
I know.
Lord.
Yeah, I know it's getting bad. Actually, I was chatting to a friend who's over like east side, and they're like, "Yeah, it's freezing here. What are you complaining about? You've still got sun and you've got a
Yeah.
beach, but it is cold here, so we are all rugged up
Yeah.
today." So yes, we straight into it. I thought, Pat, before we go on about Tears of the Kingdom, full disclosure, both Pat and I have not had time to play this game yet. We have other games we've been playing. We've got a backlog.
I've also been too poor to get it. So
Yeah.
that is my reason. I've been financially strapped.
Maybe I should stop going on holiday, give you some money, and then you can play it. How does that sound? We've solved our problems just like that. Yeah, so we haven't. So we're not going to pretend that we have. If you want to see an in-depth gameplay review, check out the big websites like Kotaku, all that stuff like that. They've got gameplay videos around it. We do want to get onto it. Like, it does look really good, but we cannot not discuss this game. A few fun facts to start with. First up, Pat. So Tears of the Kingdom sold 10 million copies within the first 3 days.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
That is monstrous. Like that is
It's crazy.
monstrous. I don't know if there's any recent games that have like reached that milestone in that
Yeah.
time.
Not
That's
much. I mean, like, I think it was the Pokemon game from last year that sold pretty
yeah.
quickly, the Violet and Scarlet. So
Yeah.
some of the Switch games just take off really quickly.
That's insane,
Um,
dude. 10 million in 3 days.
Yeah, it's incredible. So that's already passed a whole lot of other popular Switch games and Switch games from the other big providers. I think we knew this was always going to happen because Zelda games are
Yeah,
phenomenal,
true.
and
Yeah.
yeah, Breath of the
Um,
Wild's already sold like one of
is
the
that
most.
sold?
Yeah,
Like 10,
huh?
10 million sold? Like 10
Sold,
million
dude.
units
Sold in
sold?
3 days. So that's like pre-orders, like flying off the shelf. three
Sheesh.
days. They didn't even give it a week to bring out the count. So
So that's
this
like
game,
that's like $80, $80 a unit, 10 million units sold.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Ugh.
interesting. That's the other fact I was going to bring up. So, fun fact too. Tears of the Kingdom is also the first Nintendo Switch like premium title. So Nintendo hiked up their prices by $10 US
Oh,
for
damn.
this.
Okay.
Um,
They
but
knew.
people don't care
Yeah.
because they knew
They
they're
knew.
going to make a whole lot
Yeah.
more money.
Yeah.
Would $10, a $10 price increase stop
No,
you,
I
Pat,
wouldn't
from
put me
buying
off.
it?
Nah, no way. Nintendo be
Exactly.
laughing all the way to the bank. Good lord.
Exactly. Exactly. And look, to be fair, Sony and Microsoft have been jacking up the price for next gen games, which is
Yeah.
totally understandable given the cost millions and millions of dollars to make these
Mm.
games. So I think Nintendo made a really smart move to pull the biggest game on their system in recent years. And going forward to be like, yeah, we'll charge a little bit more. I think that's a fair call. And for a game of this magnitude, I think it's also a very fair
Oh yeah,
call
absolutely.
too.
Absolutely.
Fun fact three, there is a Nintendo Switch OLED edition out there. Or maybe not. I don't know if it's sold out, but if you are
No,
new
that
to the
looks
Switch
nice.
ecosystem, it looks gorgeous. It looks really sweet, really cute.
Oh,
So
good.
you can buy that now if you want it. So if you are keen to get into the Switch ecosystem, you're keen to learn about Zelda, now is the time for you. But yeah, speaking of Tears of the Kingdom, so we both haven't played it before. Pat, I might start with you. You've seen the trailers. We've had a bit of a look into this game. You can't browse the internet without Tears of the Kingdom coming up on your screen. It's getting 10 out of 10s everywhere.
Everywhere.
It's on fire. We do want to get into this game, listeners and viewers. We really do. We're going to get there one day. We might have to do a special sometime. But Pat, despite the fact that you and I haven't bought this game, doesn't mean we're not excited. What does this game mean to you after playing Breath of the Wild? Quite a while ago, and
Yeah.
this coming out as like a sequel, like Zelda game, which is kind of rare because they do a new thing from time to time. But
Yeah.
what did you think about with this game coming out, and what are you excited for?
Well, so pretty much I remember when I was actually playing Breath of the Wild,
Mm,
I was so like engrossed in the story that I remember being like, oh my God, like, they have to make a sequel for this because I was just so impressed. I just thought it was so good that, like, yeah, a sequel has to be made because the story needs
mm.
to continue. Like the
Yeah,
world building, the
interesting.
environment and stuff. I think, I think this is, I think this is the first time they've done a sort of like a proper. I mean, I know there's been like Ocarina of
Mm,
Time and stuff like that, and they've actually done like other characters and things like this, but I feel
mm.
like it hasn't been this fleshed out, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like they've
yeah, yeah,
they've
yeah,
got
yeah. Like
legitimate,
characters
like,
that are voiced and all that kind of thing. And
yeah,
then
and
there's
just like
continuity.
characterization. Yeah, there's like, background, like there's background stories to the characters. Like you really feel for like the other champions, I suppose. Like,
Mm,
from Breath of the Wild. So yeah, I was super 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 keen for Tears of the Kingdom, but
mm.
again, I'm not gonna lie, that a little bit of that hype probably died out because it took. How long did it take for Tears of the
I
Kingdom to come out?
think
A
I
long
think
time
they
now, almost like.
announced it. Yeah, yeah. I think they announced it back in like 2019 or something like that. I remember 2021 is when they announced a release date, and it got pushed back to 2023.
Yeah,
Which, look, to be fair, Zelda games tend to take a long, long, long time to come out. So
yeah,
before Breath of
true.
the Wild, there was Skyward Sword, which was like, oh,
Yeah, like
so long
2011,
earlier.
I think. Yeah,
Oh yeah, it
2011
was
was
a
Skyward Sword. That's
yeah, 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 exactly.
yeah,
And Breath of the Wild was what 2017 when the Switch came out. So there's a huge wait in between games.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry,
But
keep
that's
going. Yeah.
No, that's absolutely fair. Like, yeah, it's huge weight. So like a little bit of that hype died out, but like,
Mm,
um, looking at the trailer and stuff like that, you can't really fault it. Like it's bringing the
yeah.
hype back. It's gonna
Mm,
suffer from the same problem that that I personally have with these types of just like mammoth games is that
mm,
they need absolute time sinks. And the reason why it took me ages to get into Breath of the Wild is
mm,
because I would look at it and I'd be like, Jesus, I need to sink like 200 hours in this game. And at the time, I just did not have that much
mm,
disposable time. So
mm,
I was late to the Breath of the Wild party, and look, I don't want to be late to the Tears of the Kingdom party
mm,
only because I really want to get into it, and just like watching
mm,
the trailer, there's like mechanics and stuff in there that look very very interesting.
mm,
Because that I think I brought it up in one of our earlier pods where I was just sort of I was just wondering what they could improve upon on Breath of the
mm,
Wild because like
mm,
graphics will be very limited because you'll be crippling the Switch. Like, yeah,
mm,
the Switch OLED, which is a little bit more powerful, but
mm.
if you
Sort of with like the
sort of
screen having richer
yeah,
colors,
yeah,
but not like the processing. Like it was kind of like, yeah, if they're making a sequel. And I remember when Breath of the
yeah,
Wild came out, there was couple of frame rate issues, but it generally ran quite well.
yeah,
Yeah, it was kind of
exactly.
like there was a
So
bit of like concern. How is this going to run? How's it going to look
yeah,
this
so
long later? You know?
that's right. But they seem like they've done really well. I don't see any sort of complaints about how it's running on the current Switch, which is
Yeah,
really, really,
no,
really
it's
good.
running well. Apparently, it's running really
Yeah,
well. Yep.
yeah, exactly. So that's amazing. So I just want to continue the story now. But again,
Yep.
I have a complex where I do not like playing sequels of games until I've finished the previous.
Yeah, I wanna. We're gonna have to go into that because we're gonna talk
Yeah.
about your favorite game a bit later,
Yeah.
which is Breath of the Wild. And
Yeah.
because I haven't played Breath of the Wild either or finished that, like
That's
I have a
stunning.
similar kind of feeling of you, like as you. Although I'm excited for this, so like for me, this looks really cool.
Yeah, stunning.
So I haven't played Breath of the Wild for a lot of reasons. Like it is not my favorite game genre, and I didn't actually like the direction they took Zelda in some
Oh,
ways. But we'll come to that later. I
slander.
like something. Oh
Okay.
no, sorry. I'll turn off my camera. But I do think it looks incredible. I can see why it's beloved by many, and am actually interested in this game, and I can see myself with the same barrier as you when I have the time to sit down for hours at a time
Yeah.
uninterrupted, quietly. I'd love to have a surround sound set up, whatever, sit down and just like immerse myself in this world. But apart from that, this sequel, I was still excited about this sequel. I just like to see people get what they want. Like Zelda is one of the biggest franchises out there. People really wanted a number of changes to the Breath of the Wild kind of world, but actually got a new.
Mm,
Let me rephrase. Like a lot of people wanted to see Breath of the Wild continue, but with some upgrades and changes. So it's
yeah.
exciting to see that this world has continued in some way. Nintendo's kind of what's the word? They've kind of like built on it, so to speak. You can go to
Yeah.
the sky, you can go underground. So there's the familiarity that people have with Breath of the Wild, and that brings a continuity into your experience as a gamer, whether you played it 7 years ago when you bought your Switch, or recently when if you've just learned about Breath of the Wild, which still is a hot seller, by the way, as Zelda
Yeah.
titles tend to be. But yeah, I think it looks great. I think the systems like Fuse look really good. Building your own, like people are building their own gliders to
Yeah.
fly around the map. People are like putting weird objects on like their bows and swords. That looks really cool.
Yeah.
Um, but like you, Pat, for me, the most kind of exciting and interesting thing about these games is, in a way, the story, even though it's quite minimalist, and the world building and the quiet tale that it tells.
Mm,
So yeah, that's what I'm excited for. Apparently, there's more of a like story focus on this one, and that's actually a bit of a highlight. So that actually makes me more inclined to get it.
mm, mm.
Again, I will probably go through Breath of the Wild first because I think coming back
Yeah.
to what you said, like it's hard to, you were saying like you kind of need to go through that first to come back to this. So do you see yourself going back and playing Breath of the Wild first? And
Oh, absolutely. I
yeah,
mean, look, I got about as so uh I'm pretty close to finishing Breath of the Wild. It's just it suffered from the Skyrim treatment, as I've
mm,
mentioned before, in that there are
open world
so
syndrome.
yeah, there's so many things to do, and there's just so many cool things to explore that I get up
Mm,
to a set like when I get up to the point in the story where I'm self-sufficient and I'm strong and I can do whatever I want and I don't have to worry about
mm.
accidentally walking into an area where I get my ass kicked.
Yeah,
Um,
I totally get that, man. I
yeah,
totally get that. It's like the game changes for you. It's like I can now
yeah,
really feel in control or really enjoy it, do what I
yeah.
want, rather than just like, oh, I've got to go do this and then I've got to go do
Exactly.
that.
And like
Yeah.
once I've unlocked all the all the mechanics like gliding, the travel mechanics where it lets me
Mm.
get to the other places.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Breath of the Wild, there's places that are too hot. So you have to wear
Mm-hmm.
like, you have to wear heat resistant clothing, or too cold where you have to wear like
Mm.
freeze resistant clothing. So early game you can't go there because you're just gonna die
Mm.
because you don't have those equipment. So once
Mm.
you get all those, um, it might not necessarily be like end game. You'll get them like 80% through the game, which is what happened to me. And then I just started exploring and like mucking around, and
Mm.
then I just didn't finish. I just didn't finish the story. So,
No, I totally get
um,
it. How many hours did you put into it? Like it would have
oh mate,
been.
I think like 240.
Yeah,
Currently
that's
240 on
massive.
yeah.
Like that is a huge amount of time for any game. 240 is like 6 games in one for some people, like
Yeah,
me. You know,
yeah,
that's
yeah. Two.
awesome.
According to my Switch stats, I think it's currently at 240. And I remember I am because I just finished the last Divine Beast, so I can actually
Yep.
go fight. I can actually go finish the game. Like I can actually go fight Calamity Ganon.
Okay, cool.
Um, yeah, but I do have to say though, it's kind of like open. I don't want to say it's linear because you can fight Calamity Ganon. I think at any point in time
Mm.
from memory.
Yeah,
But
apparently speedrunners have done it in like 20 minutes or whatever. I
yeah,
don't
like
know. Like some
you
people
don't.
dedicate their lives to just running and
Yeah,
somehow getting to the boss and beating them.
yeah, like
Incredible.
you don't have to do the divine beasts or anything like that. But
Mm.
I did because I love the story. I love the gameplay.
Oh, they look incredible. Like the divine
Yeah,
beast, like the
yeah,
giant. I've just seen like the picture of the giant like elephant thing and the giant pterodactyl thing and gone, oh my
yeah,
god, that's the actual dungeon. That
yeah.
is freaking amazing. Like,
And
yeah.
yeah, I'm a little bit of a completionist, so I
Mm.
like getting the best. Like I'm a min in the gaming world. It's called a min maxer.
Yeah.
It's a min maxer, which I love to get the best equipment. I love to get the highest
Uh,
stats.
These
Yeah,
games are like toxic to you then, dude, because then you're like, I have to get like the best
yeah,
equipment.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
like
get
the
that. I
master,
totally get that.
yeah, absolutely. So that's where my time goes, and then
Mm,
that's where my drive comes from.
mm,
So unfortunately, sometimes once I reach that pinnacle where I've got the highest stats, I've got the best equipment,
mm.
I'm like, oh, I've done what I need to do. I don't necessarily need to see the game to full completion. It'd be
Hmm.
nice, but
You're kind of like Ganon. I actually don't even need to bother
yeah,
with you. You
yeah.
should come to me. I'm the
Yeah,
boss of the game.
exactly,
Come and
exactly.
try me and get your ass
Yeah,
kicked. I'm finished.
exactly,
Oh, game
exactly.
over.
I'm
I
too
get that,
strong
man.
now. I'm too strong. Like
Yeah,
exactly. So no, it's yeah. Breath of the Wild is fantastic, but Tears of the
yeah,
Kingdom, I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna get to it, guys. I
yeah,
promise.
yeah.
But
Totally get that, man. I totally get that. Um, yeah, and I will too. But I think we both have that same kind of issue, really, where it's about time. It's not the game itself.
it's
It's
time. Yeah,
literally about the game type and the games we play. And yeah, if I could sit down for 5 hours, no, 2 hours, two
yeah,
hours like on a day and just sit there and play and immerse
yeah,
myself. And then I think it's also, all these games, not the type of games you can just sit there and do 2 hours and go, "Oh, I'm not going to play it for another 2 weeks." Like, because you want to come back and
yeah,
have that consistent
yeah,
process and go, I've finished that bit. I've finished that bit. Like
yeah,
going from point A to point B or doing a divine dungeon might take quite a long time.
yeah,
And then you want to continue that experience. So yeah, I mean, viewers and listeners, we are excited about this.
yeah. I mean,
I'll go ahead, Pat.
oh no, I was going to say you're
Mm,
completely spot on with the commitment thing because especially with the size of these games, by the time
mm,
like you if you commit say you're like 45 minutes or an hour, like
mm.
that's that's good for a parent, I assume. For a
Yeah.
parent, that's an hour of just like sitting down and playing games. That's pretty goddamn solid.
Yeah.
Especially with a young child. So, but the problem is that hour might literally just be the time that you take to run from like one side of the map to where you need to get to. So, like literally, you would have
Yes.
achieved nothing. You would have achieved nothing except
Yes.
running. Like, so,
No, you exactly that, and no, you're spot on, and like it does come down to your personal context. That's why for me, I loved playing Metroid Prime earlier this year. Like it
yeah,
is a long game, but it is broken into bite sizes.
yeah,
I can play
yeah,
through 20 minutes and go, I've gotten from checkpoint A to checkpoint B, knowing I've made progress, knowing I've experienced something different and interesting. And I'm not saying you can't progress in these games, but I'm just saying it's like, I can put it down now rather than going, I
yeah,
need to get to all the way there to craft something to go to here
yeah,
before I
yeah,
can, because
yeah,
that's what I want to do, but I don't have time to do it. But that's kind of like an interesting segue coming off that, because what we did want to talk about today is like our favorite Zelda games of all time. So, um, I have played quite a few Zelda games themselves. Pat, we're going to start with you. Your favorite Zelda game of all time is Breath of the Wild. Why is it your favorite game of all time? And like, what's taking into consideration that time commitment? You were saying you sunk like 240 hours
yeah,
into it.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So Breath of the Wild was like a lot of people's favorite game when it first came out. What did it for you? Why is this game special to you?
Okay, so I'm gonna be completely honest. Before Breath of the Wild, it was Ocarina of Time was my
Yeah,
favorite, only
yeah, totally,
because
man.
and the same elements from Ocarina of Time and Breath of the Wild, is why Breath of the Wild has become my favorite. I
Mm,
love open world games because like I have a relative sense of wanderlust, so I can't
mm,
really it's much easier for me to fulfill that wanderlust if I have an
mm.
open world game because I can like look at this
I know. So this game's
just look at this
perfect for that.
trailer.
Like Wanderlust is
Yeah,
like the perfect kind of like criteria,
e-
or like for something that
exactly.
hits that spot. It's like it's all yours. Go do what you
Exactly.
want.
Like
That's
look at this
exciting.
trailer.
I
Look at these
know.
views. Like
And this
look at these
is
views.
2017. This
Yeah.
is a game that we're talking about other games that come out these days. We're talking about Redfall or whatever, that are struggling to get across the line. And this game is still an evergreen title.
Yeah.
Like you can play it
Look
now,
at
you can play
this.
it in 10 years, and you'll have a great
Yeah.
time. Sorry, Pat.
Stunning.
Go on. Yeah, it's
No,
but you were
so
saying why you loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, open world, and I mean, I've always been a big Zelda fan.
Mm.
I remember in primary school where I was trying to draw. I'm not a very good artist, but I was trying to draw, and Link was one of the first characters that I was trying to draw simply because
Nice.
I like the sword. I like the sword and the shield. I like the characterization.
Mm-hmm.
He's just your archetypal hero. He's like, you
Mm.
know, strong, silent, sword and shield, just goes out
Mm.
there, get shit done.
Mm.
Um, I also love the. I was not initially a fan of weapons breaking or like having a durability,
Yeah.
so that kind of annoyed me because I'm a little bit of a pack rat.
Mm.
So at one point I had like 12 long swords or some shit that just carry around, taking up room in my inventory because I
But you
was so
needed them, right?
afraid.
Because they break, right?
Well,
Like
no,
that's
because
yeah.
they're quite durable, but I just have
Oh,
the
okay.
complex where I'm like, oh shit, what if
Oh.
I'm in the middle of a fight and then like I need like six swords because they keep breaking? Like, yeah, I don't know, stupid as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like the fact that you can customize Link's appearance, like with
Yep.
different armors and stuff like that. Obviously, they serve different purposes, like I said, like heat resistant, freeze resistant. But there are
Mm.
aesthetic ones that you can wear him like you can make him wear a full plate, like a full plate
Mm-hmm.
armor. You know, different boots, different hoods, and obviously different shields and weapons throughout the game. It's so cool. You're not just stuck to using the sword, but I use the sword the whole time because it's the point
Yep.
of it for me.
Yep.
But just it's just the open world nature and just like the
Mm.
customization as well as the story, which we've never like a fleshed out story, which we've never really super had. I think in any of the
Mm.
titles, beyond like oh shit, like the world needs saving. Here comes Ganon. I mean, like
Mm.
it's the same. It's the same in Breath of the Wild, where it's like Ganon is, causing crap again, and you have to go put a
Mm.
stop to him. But you got
Mm.
other characters that are really, really likable that have been introduced, like the four champions that pilot the Divine Beast. They're super cool,
Mm.
and they've got their own backstories and their own people and stuff that have been explored. So
Do
overall, it's just
you
like yeah. So go on.
those four characters, like, because I haven't played the game, do you see
Yeah,
much of them throughout the game, and do they have a role to play? Like, because I know with Tears of the Kingdom, I've seen some footage where they're fighting alongside you, but I
yeah,
haven't. I guess for me, I've only really seen the trailers of Breath of the
yeah,
Wild. I haven't played it, and one thing that put me off was it looked empty. In not like I
no,
get the Wanderlust thing, but I was like,
yeah,
oh, where's the story? Where's the characters? All I'm seeing is a lot of horse riding, mountains, which looks
yeah,
wonderful. But I'm like,
yeah.
I am a story driven gamer. I want to interact with these characters. I want to see
Yeah.
Zora's Domain. I want to see Garuda Valley.
Oh,
Like,
you go to
yeah,
these
is it worth it?
places.
Like, are those
Yeah,
things done well in Breath of the Wild? Are they exciting?
yeah,
Are they? Yeah,
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 yeah. You go to these places because
yep.
you
Cool.
have to meet these people. So the four bit of background. So the four champions are from the four different races
Yep,
in Hyrule. So
yep.
basically, you've got
Like the rock people and the
yeah.
fish
It's test. This is gonna
people.
test me. This is gonna test me. Let's see.
Nah,
So
that's all right. There's.
you got Mifa, I think Mifa, who's like the Zoran
Okay.
champion, which are like
Okay.
the fish people.
Yeah.
Rivali, who's like I think he or she is like the bird peoples.
Yep.
Darok, Darok,
Oh yeah, Durok or Darok is
yeah,
like the big
yeah,
rock guy with like a
yeah,
rock
yeah. He's
beard
the
and rock
Goron,
hair.
yeah,
Oh, he looks so yeah,
Goron.
Goron. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and Urbosa, who's my favorite, and they are
Yep.
from the desert, the Gerudo people.
Sweet.
So yeah, you get to interact with these people. The champions are there to help you. They've got their own backstories, and they're very, very likable. They're basically there to guide Link, and they pilot the Divine Beast. So
Mm.
pretty much, I don't know if this is spoiler, but yeah, the four
Mm.
champion like it's set in like medieval Hyrule.
Mm.
And basically at that time, Ganon was doing his bullshit, and so
It's
yeah,
so
so
true. Every
yeah,
game's like Ganon's like overthrown stuff, and it's like, all
yeah,
right,
he's
freaking
just
Ganon
being
again.
Ganon. Yeah, far
Yeah,
out. Like
he's back,
yeah,
and you don't even need to ask more. It's like, all right, Ganon's back.
exactly. Oh, sorry. This is Calamity
Oh,
Ganon, who's
okay,
just like,
okay.
yeah. So and basically, so the people of Hyrule they assembled these four champions along with Zelda and Link.
Mm. Mm.
So the four champions will pilot the divine beast to sort of
Okay,
contain or fight Ganon.
okay.
but unfortunately, they gave their life up for that because unfortunately
Mm,
Ganon got control of the beasts, and
mm.
so these four champions sacrificed themselves so the beasts
Oh,
they
it's kind
don't
of
get
sad.
Ganon doesn't get full control of them pretty much.
Okay,
So
okay.
and that's where the story is that you go the divine beasts are the dungeons, the main dungeons in this
Yep.
game, and then you go into them and then you free the spirit of the champions and then they help you in the fight
Okay.
with Ganon.
Oh, cool. That's so
But
cool.
obviously it's like they're dead. It's like their spirit because this
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Link gets put in some sort of sleep state, and then like millions of years pass or whatever, or like 100 years pass or something,
Mm.
and then yeah, that's it. But it's John, you need to play it, man.
Yeah,
It's a great game.
I
Unfortunately,
do.
a time sink. Unfortunately, a time sink.
No, no, totally get it. I'm definitely going to look at this game. I think I'm going to actually start it this year or next year.
Nice.
As soon as I can. Like, yeah, it looks, it does appeal to me on a lot of different levels, and kind of hearing that because I had that reservation about like, oh, I just have to run around and do all this mandatory crafting stuff. I was like, that's not my jam. I'm not into sandbox games that way. But if
Yeah.
there is that story driven element where I can go through and do the main quests, then and play it my way, so to speak,
Yeah.
then I would totally get in on it. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I know it's a lot of people's favorite game of all time. It'd be interesting to see if Tears of the Kingdom becomes people's favorite game, and if
Yeah, I want
people
to
can look.
see.
Yeah, I know. It's like, can people look backwards to other games and go, oh, I still like Breath of the Wild more or
Mm.
not? Because really, it's an improvement on everything in Breath of the Wild, although it is also a progression in the story. Um,
Oh, this is
so
yours.
this is mine. My favorite game of all time. Well, Zelda game of all time. I did like Ocarina of Time, like you.
Yeah.
I had a Nintendo 64 at the time, and it
Yeah.
was phenomenal. And I remember just going up like Death Mountain and the
Yeah.
lava
You're
balls
telling me,
coming
man.
through,
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh, there's nothing like this in the world. It is so cool. But my favorite is definitely the Wind Waker. So this is footage from the HD version that was remade, remastered for the Wii U. The original one came out on GameCube. When this game first came out, there was a lot of controversy around it because people had expectations of what Zelda was and where it was going. So in terms of what Ocarina of Time looked like, that's what people expected. And Nintendo actually developed footage that looks a bit like Twilight Princess, but better. It's at before this game was released. So when it came out, it was a shock that it had this kind of cartoon vibe to it. For me, however, I loved this art direction. There was
I
nothing like it.
love this art style.
Oh man, there was nothing like it at the time. Like cell shaded was like a new term.
Yeah.
There were a couple of
Oh,
things like,
yeah.
yeah. Do you remember back at those days? It was like Jet Set Radio. I don't
Yeah.
think there was much else going on. There might have been a couple of anime fighting games, like the Naruto games. I'm not sure, but when this came out, it was like, that looks like a freaking comic book come to
Yeah.
life,
I
or a
mean, I've already told
movie.
you, cell shading is like my favorite type of I don't know, graphic rendering or just art style. So
Yeah, yeah, it's all kind
um
of, yeah.
yeah, nah, good choice, man. Wind Waker is I love the art style. I don't know what people are
Yeah.
complaining about because this is freaking awesome.
It's gorgeous. Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of people grew up with Zelda back in the day. So people were teenagers or hitting their early 20s when this came out, and they're like, oh, I'm growing out of this. You know, you've got the PlayStation 3 coming out, you got the Xbox 360, and they're like, well, I'm sort of, over this. Oh, sorry, PlayStation 2 and Xbox at that time, and going, oh, it's too kiddish. But it looks phenomenal, and it still does look phenomenal to me. But I love this game for a lot of other reasons. Like, I think the dungeons, for me, are what I love about the Zelda games in many ways. Not necessarily the puzzles, but the art style and the elements. So what
Hmm.
you see here, like, just looks like it could come out today and it would be wonderful.
Yeah.
So things like one of the dungeons where there's like a giant mountain and there's this big dragon sitting on the top and its tail's sticking through, and the boss is like this
Yeah.
centipede that's been hanging onto the tail, and the mountain's rumbling and it's bellowing out, and you're like, what's going on? What's going on? And then you're like, oh, nasty. Like you got to get in
Yeah.
there and beat that monster and help that dragon. Oh, loved it. And then what I also loved is just, so probably one of the weaknesses of this game is that it has this whole open world, but it's on the seas in your boat. And you have to
That's
change the wind
cool.
direction. It was
Yeah.
amazing at the time, but probably these days there's too much time wasted just sailing and watching the
Yeah,
sunset
right.
and
Okay.
rise.
Yeah.
Like, it wouldn't fly these days, kind of thing. And that's why a lot of people think it hasn't been re-released yet. Like it might need reworking. But I loved it. I loved watching the ocean go up and down. Like that,
Hmm.
the physics in the game are incredible. Watching it go from day to night was also special. There were day-night systems, but when you watch
Yeah,
that
nice.
and
Yeah.
the colors of the water change, oh, mwah.
Chef's kiss. Chef's kiss.
Yeah, and then watching sorts like things like storms in the distance. You watch a tornado come out, and there's like this magic frog in there, which I won't spoil. I don't. Did you have you played this game or played it through? Because it is
I
quirky, but it's
I
very
played it.
cool.
I played it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't finished it, but I have definitely played it. And yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I don't know what the hate was, and that was coming from Ocarina of Time as well. So
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I
Maybe
don't
you and
know.
I were one of the. I mean, I think people got converted over time, but there was just that initial thought of like, oh, it's a kids' game because maybe
Yeah,
because also
the graphic
Link
style
looks
and
so
whatever.
younger, the graphics
Yeah,
style, but Link is also himself a lot younger, right? It's like, oh,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
moving in this kid direction, but we want them to move along with the PlayStation to an Xbox direction. We want to see blood, gore, all that stuff, and they didn't do that.
yeah,
That's I remember that back in the day. It was like people were like, where's all the blood and gore? Like this is not what we
yeah.
want. But as you can see, it looks incredible. Yeah, so this one has a special place in my heart, and I loved that you would use oh my god, like you would do the what's it called? Like you conduct the wind, and like you get these different songs and different
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
wind directions and things like that. Hence the name of the game title.
Wind
But
Waker.
yeah, it
Yep.
was. Hey,
Wind Waker. Yep.
Wind Waker, that's true. But yeah, look, this one was special for me. So there's
Love it.
heaps of Zelda games out there. Hopefully, this one does come to the Switch. I'd be interested, surprised if
I'd
it
get it.
did.
I'd
Um,
I'd absolutely get it. I don't even
you
care.
get it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
How would you go going back to this old style of Zelda games though, having come off Breath of the Wild? Like, would you?
Oh
Because
look.
like it is the A to B. It's linear. You can't climb. You can't climb
Yeah.
mountains. You can't do what you want. You have to go to point A to B on this track. And I think that's where the series is never going to turn back. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Okay.
it's yeah,
I don't know. Like, I think I'd be okay because, like, as much as I love like open world gaming and stuff, it's not the be all and
mm,
end all for me. So,
mm,
I really like the art style. So that's probably what's going to keep me going and what's going to capture
hmm
me. And I'm sure, like, yeah, from my memory of playing it, the story was pretty good as well. So,
Oh, it was
um,
amazing. And
yeah,
can I
it's
just say the Ganon like the boss fight with Ganondorf,
yeah,
freaking amazing at a waterfall. He looks so
yeah,
cool. It's tense. It's exciting. Oh,
yeah.
it's gorgeous. It is just gorgeous.
I would have
Yeah,
no
yeah.
problems going back to it.
Sweet, sweet. Well, hopefully they release a copy on the Switch or the Switch successor, or even if they took the series in a different direction where they've got like their mainline Zelda series, which is like Breath of the Wild, the open world, but then they've got like stories. I'd love to see like their contained games, traditional gameplay. Oh, I'd love that.
Hmm.
But so look, listeners, viewers,
Won't be
that
good
does
for my
bring us to our
wallet, but
next.
yeah.
Oh, dude, nothing's good for our wallet. We still have to get Tears of the Kingdom first, too.
Yeah.
But that does bring us to our next segment where we wanted to talk a bit about the release of Tears of the Kingdom and the Nintendo Switch in general, where it's at now. So the Switch is 6 years old, came out in 2017. I bought mine that year. I remember buying it that year and getting like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Um, yeah, it's for me, I guess I'm kind of seeing Tears of the Kingdom as an end of the Switch era in the sense of like a second game has come out for like a second Zelda game has come out. The graphics are like it looks amazing, but recently a lot of games like Bayonetta 3, Pokemon Violet and Scarlet have not looked good. Um, where do you like for you, Pat? Do you think the Switch is like coming full circle now, or do you think it's got another couple of years life in it? Where you sort of see the Switch position now after the 6 years, and compared to the other two big consoles, which are in their third year and starting to actually finally take off. More Xbox, but
Yeah.
PlayStation's taken off more last year with God of War and Horizon. But yeah, now that they're really lifting and they're flying off the shelves.
I mean, that's a really good question because, like, based on the performance for Tears of the Kingdom, it looks like it can still handle it. But
Yeah,
also remembering that the most recent Pokemon releases, one of the problems with them was that it was struggling because there's like there's like FPS
Oh, it looked
FPS
awful, and it
drops,
just
like
barely played.
yeah, yeah. So it's probably reaching its limit. I mean,
Mm.
to be fair, like it's had a bloody good run. Like it's been
Yeah.
out for 6 years. It's been out for 6 years. Games are still releasing
Yep.
for it. It's like like primetime games like Tears of the Kingdom, and it still handles it well. So whether that be the optimization of the game is really really good, and the
Mm-hmm.
developers took that into account and had the foresight to be like, you know what, this is releasing on a 6-year-old console. Let's make some concessions,
Mm-hmm.
or just they're just playing that fine line. They're just doing a really good job of you know doing what they do best, as well as probably. I mean, have we heard much about the
Um,
successor,
not
to
really.
Switch?
There's kind of been rumors ever since the Switch came out. They're like, oh, Switch Pro will come out, 2, 3
Yeah,
years later, 2019, 2020. It all never happened. The only iteration we got, because it is a combination of that handheld and home console device, the only
yeah.
iteration we got was the Nintendo Switch OLED, which
OLED, yeah,
is came out in 2021 when they were advertising Metroid Prime. You can get it now for about $450, but again, that's only an OLED screen upgrade.
yeah,
The processor itself, there's no difference in the games. They play on both
yeah,
models. So we haven't
yeah,
had a true successor, and not even a Pro, so to speak, like we did with the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, yeah,
yeah,
before the series was released. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think that look, they're still going to make money because they've hit that sweet spot of like you know it's easy to get for the kids. It's
Mm,
handheld. It's not
mm-hmm,
like compared to the other consoles. It's not as expensive. Like
mm,
you said, the OLED version is supposed to be the premium version, and it's
mm.
still $200 or $300 less than the bloody Xbox or
More, dude. I
the
was googling
PS5.
Xboxes yesterday. They're 750 base price,
Yeah,
and
so
same as PS5. And then you can buy the OLED model for $300 cheaper than that. And
yeah,
you've
yeah,
got multiple
exactly.
controllers, so to speak, and a handheld device. So
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. So, like, yeah, I think it's still gonna go strong until obviously the release of the successor, or like
yeah.
people were just getting the OLED versions, because how much more is the OLED version compared to the Switch? Probably like
Not
hundred
sure.
bucks,
Not much. Yeah,
hundred
hundred
bucks
bucks
more.
max.
Yeah,
Yeah, not much.
yeah,
Like still very affordable.
maybe two
Like
hundred dollars more. Like, but
yeah, not
um,
even. Yeah.
yeah, in terms of like affordability and just like the games that come out on it as well, it's like family friendly, it's kid friendly. Like even their marketing for it, like you got like groups of friends like playing outside and shit. Like
Hmm.
it's I reckon they're in a good spot. Like
Mm-hmm.
they are definitely walking to the beat of their own drum. They're not competing
Mm-hmm.
with PlayStation or Xbox, so they're not really
Mm.
in that sort of race. And even if they did, they'd probably win. Like
Mm.
if they're not already winning. So I reckon
Mm.
they're very comfortable. The OLED and release of games like Tears of the Kingdom is
Mm.
probably going to keep them going for quite a while, until such a
Mm.
time that actual performance starts taking a hit.
I agree. And I think like the fact that they've launched a new OLED model with the new Tears of the Kingdom game and they've made it on the Switch itself, as said to consumers, actually, we're going to stick with the Switch for at least another year because they
Yeah,
don't want to bring out an amazing edition like that and go, sorry, that's redundant,
yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I, I think people who buy it, people are really into the gaming industry or Zelda fans, are not going to want to buy it going, oh, I know they're going to bring out the Switch 2 in 6 months, so I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah, like
I
shooting yourself
really
in the
do
foot.
think there's at least that year's worth of mileage as well. And then, I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and he was asking for advice about, his kids have grown up. He's thinking about getting a Switch, been excited and had his eyes on it for years. What kind of games and is it worth getting? And I was like, absolutely, man. Like, absolutely. It has that incredible price point compared to the other consoles.
Yeah,
When you buy it out of the packet, it's got multiple controllers, even though it's the small little ones that
yeah,
disconnect. regardless, that's really good value because those controllers can play games like the Switch Sports or
Yeah.
Ring Fit Adventure or
Yeah,
Mario
exactly,
Party
exactly.
in a unique way, right?
Yeah.
And then it was like, yeah, so two of you can play straight up, and then you buy another set of what are they called, Joy-Con, or you can
Joy-Cons,
buy a
yeah.
Pro controller. So out of the box, it's great. And then the library is incredible, and the library is not a library of games that are going to age poorly or be redundant. So we've said this on the show a few times before, but Mario Kart 8 is the best seller for this
Yeah.
system, and it was on the Wii U. DLC is still releasing. There's still two waves of DLC coming out for that game, which already had DLC built into it when it launched in 2017 as an old game. Okay, so someone who's just turned 5, 6, 7 years old might be like the first perfect game for them is Mario Kart because it's
Mm-hmm.
accessible and they can play that with dear old mum, dear old dad, their older sibling, their mates, whatever. The same is true of Splatoon, which has an online focus, but it has that early kind of easy to get into kind of game, and there's two titles available. The other thing is that these games like Mario Odyssey, they give you that single player experience if you want that, or Super Mario 3D World give you that multiplayer couch co-op experience. And
Mm-hmm.
the way the graphics are, kind of like you were saying with Tears of the Kingdom, is they're not going to look bad. Like no one's looking at
No.
Breath of the Wild going, "That looks terrible. I can't touch that anymore." No one's looking at 2D. Like no one's looking at like no one's looking at Mario Odyssey from 2017 going, "That's awful." Like the Mario
Yeah,
movies
yeah,
come out and that game just started selling all over again because people are like,
yeah,
"Who's Mario? Oh, I never played Mario Odyssey. Maybe it's
yeah.
time for me." So I do think these games have. I think they have really long legs. The Switch has really long legs on it. That said, I also do think all of the major franchises have now released on the Switch. So your Donkey Kong, your
Well,
Smash
yeah.
Brothers, your Splatoon, your Fire Emblem, Animal Crossing. And when those games came out, so when Animal Crossing came out in 2019, it was phenomenal. And it's the second best selling game of all time on the Switch. Here we've got like some information about, it's got all the online services. If you're into that, you can go back and play the 64, so
Yeah.
you can Mega
Oh, it's
Drive.
great.
It's
Yeah.
it's awesome. Like it's this massive backlog of games. So that said, for me, seeing Tears of the Kingdom come out, I think the Switch has 1 year left on it, and I think the successor. So Nintendo does do hard lefts and hard rights with like the Wii, the Wii U, things looking quite different. I do think they should, and I hope they do release a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro,
Mm.
and then really, someone who's bought Tears of the Kingdom this year can go, wow, the Switch 2 can play Tears of the Kingdom in
Yeah.
4K. Or they can go, all right, I'm going to play Super Mario 3D World in 4K with new features or new
Yeah.
DLC. Or they're going to release Super Smash Brothers Ultimate Extra Special Licorice on top with chocolate ice cream, where it's got all the DLC characters, and they announce 3 more waves of DLC. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that. They're like, oh, you love Smash Brothers? We're bringing it back. It looks better, and there's even more DLC characters. Like,
Yeah.
there's whoever's joined the fray, like Spider-Man or whoever. Or Spider-Man's owned by Sony, so that won't happen. But something like that.
Yeah.
But what about you, Pat? Would you recommend a Switch to get people now, or do you think they should
Yeah.
hold off for a new one? Like,
Oh, actually, that's
yeah, it's hard, eh? Like, as a new
it's
gamer, yeah, or as just, yeah,
it's really hard. Like you look, you can't go wrong, and I mean, like
mm,
you've got all the different variations of Switch there. So if you're really concerned that you're going to get superseded in like the next quick year,
mm,
buying a Nintendo Switch Lite for $199. Yes, that's expensive, but it's also not going to be super upsetting if like the new
mm,
like the new version comes out. But
mm,
at this point in time, if it was me personally, I would get the Switch OLED version, and
mm,
then and I would just stick with that because for 499,
mm,
unless you're the type of person that you have to get consoles on day of release or like as soon as they come
mm,
out, like having a Switch, I mean, goddamn, like the Switch lasted for like 6 years. So like if you
mm,
get if you get the Switch OLED, even
mm,
if like they announce the Switch Pro or Switch 2 or whatever it is they're going to announce in the next year, I
mm,
reckon that is still a good purchase
Mm,
Unless, yeah, like I said, unless you're the type of person you're like, oh shit, I need to get a Switch 2 immediately as soon as release. In
mm,
which case, like, doesn't really matter because like,
mm,
uh, if you have the budget for it
mm.
to get it, I think you're not going to lose anything.
Yeah, I
Eh,
agree. And I
And
think like, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say most retailers will do some sort of trade back. So if you get
Mm,
your Switch OLED now and then like something else better comes in like next year, I can almost guarantee you like any like retailer out there will do like trade your Switch or Switch
yeah,
OLED
true.
in and
Trade
you
your old
get
one and get the new model. Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
providing that I know Nintendo's probably going to do it, but like
Mm.
that they have the playback, sorry, the what do you call it, like compatibility
Mm.
with the old
Yeah,
version.
backwards compatibility. So that's
That's it,
something.
backwards
Yeah, backwards
compatibility. Yeah,
compatibility. Yeah.
so providing it has that, absolutely, you could just I'm very confident you could just go into EB Games or JB Hi-Fi and just be like, hey, I
Mm.
want to trade this in for the newer model.
Hmm.
You'll get some dollars off of your new model, and then it's just happy days.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, totally agree. And I think there's like the two key things there too, like you mentioned, is the cost and the value you get for getting a Switch. It's so cheap. Like I can't emphasize this enough. Like particularly for us in
Compared to others,
Australia,
yeah.
like this is freaking cheap. Like if you want a new Xbox or you want a PS5, and I'm looking at both, like getting one or the other in the next couple of months. Like I'm
It's like
looking
eight
at that
hundred
price and
bucks.
going, $800, and
Yeah.
Diablo 4's just come out, and I was like, oh, I really want to play it. There's a Diablo 4 bundle with the Xbox, and it's $850, and it's like
Holy
it's not even
crap.
like built
Yeah.
into the bundle. It's not even like a Diablo branded bundle. It's not even like, oh, you can get a normal console for 20 extra bucks. You get Diablo. It's like $100 extra. You get Diablo 4 with the bundle. I mean, to be fair, PS5 has a really cool Ragnarok bundle that was recently going on Amazon for like 750, but it's a huge cost difference.
It's
Like with the
huge,
extra three
man.
hundred
It's
dollars, you could
huge.
buy like,
Yeah.
yeah, buy Tears of the Kingdom, buy Mario 3D World, buy
By like seven
Kirby,
games.
buy,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and buy like a couple of cool online indies. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
It's
I don't
huge.
know, so much value in the Switch and such a successful system. That said,
Mm.
I cannot wait for the next one to be announced and released. We'll be covering like that crazy. Pat, we are running out of time. So next week or next podcast, if it's next week or the week after, we're going to cover the upcoming showcase. So the Summer of Gaming, led by Jeff Keighley, is still going on in the background. June 8. Go watch the news for that. There's some massive games that have come out recently. I cannot wait to talk about Mortal Kombat 1. I can't wait. I can't wait. It's going to be a 3 hour special, maybe 4. Sorry, Pat. I might even do it on my own.
No
Diablo
problem.
4's come out. Street Fighter 6 is out. There's some wonderful stuff out there in addition to Tears of the Kingdom. Xbox has its Make or Break showcase on the 12th of June. So I think that's like a weekend for us. I'm
Amazing.
not sure. We're going to
Yeah.
cover that. Stay tuned, people of Perth and beyond. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate you hanging around with us. Go enjoy Tears of the Kingdom. We'll probably cover it again when we've got our teeth into it more. Pat, did you want to say anything else before we wrap out today?
That that is pretty much it.
That's it. We're all done. So, yeah, thanks, listeners and beyond. Check out perthgamingcrew.com. Don't forget, have a great weekend. All the best for next week. Catch you later.